Welcome back guys to Manalot. In this video we'll be reacting to the free press debate. Since Sabria Shaikh has took over, there's been a lot of good debates being hosted by the free press. And this particular debate is a special one. Let's take a look at it.
Sabria is here. If you could please stand up and identify yourself and ask your question, please.
Hi, I'm Sabria Shaikh. I'm a fourth year at the University of Virginia. I'm graduating in the spring. Thank you. And my friends and I are all struggling to land entry-level jobs after graduation.
Yep.
Isabel, my question is for you. What does that mean for our generation's long-term career trajectory, and how can we realistically get ahead when even the first rung of the career ladder feels out of reach?
Hugely, hugely important. How many of you feel like the job market is not something that you can enter into right after graduation? Right now, it's just not for you. You have to go to grad school, you need extra credibility, you need more work experience. I mean, these people expect us to have been working since we were 5 years old, right? The Gen Z unemployment rate is at a record high right now, with 10 million members of our generation currently unemployed and seeking meaningful employment. Now, the government's solution to that throughout the past several years has been to import cheap labor that they don't have to pay as much as they pay you from all over the world, and to make sure those jobs are not available to you. They are available to people who don't even have the qualifications necessarily for the jobs that you are seeking, and paid $250,000+ for that magic degree that gave you the right to pursue that job in the job market. Of course, I'm wildly frustrated about this. I think you should be too, that the answer from Congress to save our GDP is to just allow 10 million people who are here in this country illegally to stay and keep those jobs, because it's cheaper for the United States economy. Some things matter a whole lot more than 5 percentage points on our GDP. This is what I hear from young men. And yet, when I hear about criticism related to new green cards or ending mass amnesty programs, they just target young men more than anybody else by being xenophobic or racist or hateful. There's nothing xenophobic, racist, or hateful about it. It is a system that has been consistently selling out the opportunities of our generation for everyone else around the world. And frankly, it's just not sustainable if we're serious about prospering and finding our own American dream.
Harry, what's your response?
I just want to quickly circle back to the fact that Isabel was not able to name a war that Joe Biden got into because the Democrats are the anti-war party now. We're the ones saying we're not getting into this, we don't want to do it, and Donald Trump is going ahead with it. Now, Isabel's point on, importing immigrants and that's what's taking the jobs. We have less workers than there are jobs open right now. This is according to data from Donald Trump's administration. So if we have less workers than we are, excuse me one second. If we have less workers than we have jobs, then the idea that immigrants are coming in and stealing jobs is just not true. And by the way, immigrants in virtually every piece of economic data makes our country better. They make our culture better. They make us better as people.
Sure, legal immigrants, I have no problem
That's great.
with that.
And I've lived all over the world. I was born in Singapore, grew up in Dublin, lived in Dubai. And the most valuable years of my life were hearing from people in different cultures than mine and learning from their experiences. So having immigrants come into the United States and work is a foundation of who we've been for our entire existence. And the idea that bringing them in is screwing over Gen Z when we have so many different points that indicate a different story is just, I think, disingenuous.
It's definitely very relevant.
Nope, I don't completely disagree here with him. Here's the point. When you say the word disingenuous, you need to know what it means, Harry. What it means is that you're not telling the full story. You have the full truth and you're only giving the half truth to the people. Here's the thing. Most immigrants that come by H-1B visa, the jobs that a lot of H-1B people enter into are low-level entry jobs. Okay? So these are not high-skilled labor. They're not doctors and astronauts. It's just basic levels job that these immigrants are coming into. So there's multiple studies that shows that if someone comes into if someone is a low-skilled labor and they enter into a immigration market and they get into the job, they don't necessarily increase anything. Matter of fact, and a lot of studies that shows that they either the wages get stagnant or they suppress the wages because they work for so less. So when you say that, virtually all immigration is good immigration, it's not. And you were making a disingenuous point. Let's move forward.
To everyone sitting here. But there's also another question about just making a living. And Sam is here from Charlottesville with his question. Sam, could you please stand up?
My name's Sam, by the way.
Nice to meet you.
I work at Charlottesville at a dealership. I've been in the industry for about 10 years now. And it feels like every day, just a possibility of buying a house, getting a family, just gets further and further away from me. I just have one question for you, Harry. If a good skilled job isn't enough anymore, what exactly is the path to an American dream for someone like me?
Well, that's a great question, and thank you for asking it. I think the path is increasingly disappearing. it feels like the American dream, in my view, is more like a lottery system than it is like an equal playing field. And I think a foundation of the American dream is like the starter home, right? I feel like we all were promised the starter home growing up, and you'll buy a house by 30. That'd be nice.
Amen.
Amen. But I think that is one of those things that is disappearing. And again, I will say, this is not a Donald Trump or Republicans are the cause of everything bad in the world. This is an issue that has really evaded both parties, and we really haven't done anything about it. But Donald Trump right now is especially making that issue worse. I mean, his tariffs, for example, on Canada, we get a lot of our lumber from Canada because it's colder up there, it grows stronger, and it's better to build our houses with. Our kitchenry is going up because of tariffs. Donald Trump just randomly putting them on countries around the world. It is a disaster.
Well, it's not
and
random.
So far,
I think that's
really?
a total mischaracterization.
Really? So
They're not random.
But when we focus on housing affordability, right, Sam, that's what we're talking about. I mean, the data shows that home prices are up nearly 50% since 2020, since the pandemic started. What's your answer, Isabel, to Sam's question?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're dealing with a generational crisis here in which young people are confused, they're frustrated, they're unsure what the best path forward is. Many of us feel like we've been sold a bill of goods and that we have to be lifelong renters. We'll never have the chance to build equity, to make sure that we own something. Interesting, of course, that they're pinning all of this on the Trump administration when it's people like the World Economic Forum saying you will own nothing and be happy. That is the ultimate vision for the political left and elitists around the world. But of course, it's going to take time from COVID. This was a generationally redefining event with extreme economic consequences. That said, month-to-month new home mortgage prices are at their lowest level currently today since September of 2022. The Trump administration is doing everything they can to ban all of these burdensome environmental regulations, things that don't really need to be a part of the building home process, but increase the opportunity to build a home by years and years and years on the timeline of all of these things. They want to make sure that we have a new supply, that it's available to the American people. Mass deportations, of course, play into some of this as well, with affordable housing all over our country in places like New York and California and here in Virginia, Section 8 housing going to illegal immigrants instead of young people who really desperately need it more than anyone as American citizens, or helping get those experiencing homelessness off the street. This is a long-term process, but I'm so grateful that the Trump administration, in particular the Department of Housing and Urban Development under Secretary Scott Turner, is taking a great look
really
at some
kicking
great
in,
ideas.
huh? Everybody can afford a house now, right? Hey,
Let's take a moment and zoom out beyond Trump versus Biden. I think we could all appreciate that for a moment, right? So let's look at the bigger picture.
Let me just say something. Did you see what Harry just did there? She made a point saying that, these things, these things matters and it all affects the housing market. She never said that exactly is the reason. And that's what he assumed. And he was like, basically, she made a point and she was like, well, 15% of this is affected by blah, blah, blah. And she gave some stats for it. And he's like, oh, must have solved the affordability crisis. She didn't make the point that that's exactly the problem that Trump administration have already solved, or that the illegals is the reason why there's a lot of housing market crisis. That's not. There's a lot of other things like private equity buying a lot of homes, BlackRock buying a lot of homes. There's a lot of reasons. It's just that Harry here is not trying to discuss or have a debate, but rather attack Trump administration and her opponent in this debate, which is Isabel, which is like disingenuous of Harry. Not good, man. Not good.
Our planet, climate change.
Yes.
Consistently ranks among the top issues for younger Americans, no secret. And for many in Gen Z, it's not just a policy issue, it's an existential one. Mm-hmm. Isabel,
I never understood climate change, man. I just don't like it. I just don't understand. I think it's a hoax, but whatever, to each their own.
Start with you. Are young Americans right to see climate change as an urgent crisis requiring major economic change, or has the level of alarm become counterproductive in your view?
How many of you say that you are dealing with existential climate anxiety? I'm curious. Many of you? I hate to say it, but
that many?
But I hate that you have been fed a bill of goods by people that you were supposed to trust to make sure that we were speaking and seeking the truth in science. Well, we're watching the climate change debate and the environmentalism debate and the public lands and conservation debate. More often than not, what we're seeing in Washington is not really a divide between the left versus the right. This is a generationally shifting issue where universally young people across the political spectrum are invested in conservation of our public lands and supporting our forests, the National Park Service, making sure that our birthright birthright of our most beautiful places across the country belongs to us, but more importantly, that we can pass it down to our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren too. But really, what the government has been telling you, what politicians have been telling you, preying on an insecurity that of course we all have. We need to take care of our most beautiful places, and we need to make sure our environment is one that is safe to live in, is to sell you on ultimate government takeover and Marxism for society through something called the Green New Deal. Experts say the Green New Deal would cost $15 trillion in lost GDP in the United States of America. Over a 10-year period to implement it, it would cost more than the entire GDP of the United States. The average family of four would lose $165,000 in annual income every single year thanks to the policies promoted by this legislation. We would lose 5+ million jobs across our country, and all of that for what climate experts are saying would provide virtually zero impact on carbon emission or plastic waste or preventing the temperature of our planet from rising, the rising of the oceans, etc. So we've been presenting.
By the way, fun fact: China produces a lot more CO2 emissions than the United States. And again, fun fact number 2: the United States has been declining in the CO2 emissions producing rate since 2 decades. Imagine this: the United States has been in decline for producing CO2 emissions for 2 straight decades, and they still think that the United States, if any change in the United States that has been made, I'm not saying don't make any change, I'm just saying like any change you make is going to be covered by countries, developing countries like China and India and a lot of other countries that are not stopping. They're not going to stop. So you changing something in your country will not make a single difference, because these other countries will not only make up for it, but also do a lot more higher, emissions.
This false narrative and this false dichotomy that it's either socialism good, save the planet, or everything else bad, the planet is going to literally die in 10 years. I don't know the last time they said that, but I'm pretty sure we've survived 10 years over about 400 times at this point. I think we have a great opportunity as a generation to shift the narrative entirely and say we all can be conservationists. This isn't a false choice.
So Isabel, I'm hearing from you that the alarm has been counterproductive. Harry, what is your response?
I mean, look, I think that it can be taken too far. Like, I'm not going to propose that people go sit on highways and signs and block traffic or go to museums and throw oil on paintings.
Glad we can agree on that.
Great, wonderful. But to be clear, like anybody that's doing that, they're not a bad person, right? I mean, they are feeling desperate. They're feeling like their government is not listening to them and not hearing their concerns. And so they'll go to extreme lengths to get that attention from the government. And this is a really important issue. And look, Isabel, I agree. I think we should care for our national parks. I think we should care about the environment. Let's listen to the climate scientists who are saying that we need robust, comprehensive policy to address this issue. And the good news, Isabel, is that the official position of the Democratic Party, it's not the Green New Deal.
I'm so glad for that, because it didn't used to be that way.
No, it actually never was. I mean, we can go back to Biden's presidency with the Inflation Reduction Act, which was the largest investment in fighting climate change, not only in American history, but in world history. What did it do? It invested in renewable energy companies around the country that are building solar panels, wind turbines, all these amazing things that bring our economy into the future and not leave us behind.
What is required to make all of these technologies?
Well, of course, you have these rare earth minerals that have to be mined from around the world. And let's just be clear.
It takes mining.
And let's just be clear, this is not a perfect system. Nobody's saying that it's 100% figured out.
But if we're serious about promoting renewable energy development in the United States and bringing that manufacturing
here. We're going to all talk over each other and we can't even hear you guys. I do want to boil it back
by
down.
Any means, Harry, but I think it's silly of us to create this shallow narrative that, of course, America should be leading the way in renewable energy, and of course, America should be leading the way in manufacturing here.
But let's
totally understand that. But in order to get there, all of the so-called environmentalists in our country that are refusing to create a single mining permit to allow for mining of rare elements, China produces 90% of the rare elements. Those are the things that we mine for that are ultimately in your phones, in solar panels, in wind turbines, etc. Environmentalists in America universally almost do not support mining projects in our country.
I would like for both of you to answer this question to get to the core of the matter. If you were to take your political positions and your politics out of this, and you hear that so many hands raised here tonight, people feel concerned about the climate.
Yeah.
In a sentence, if you were to boil it down, what would you say to that voter, to that citizen about where we are with climate today? And Isabel, I'll let you give your one sentence first.
It's simple, and it's the name of a nonprofit that I'm very lucky to be on the board of. Nature is nonpartisan. This is not a left versus right issue. This is a generational issue in our society, and we have the obligation and the opportunity to care for our beautiful spaces and steward them for the next generation through a great, healthy conversation that doesn't have to be pulled into the direction of all-out Marxism.
Harry?
I think my one sentence would just be look into the future. I mean, I don't think climate change has to be something, or solving climate change rather, has to be something where we lose all these jobs, we destroy these industries, and we leave people behind. I think it can be something that not only are we addressing environmental concerns, the clean water, clean air, and things like that, we can also create entire new sectors, entire new jobs for people in the future.
All right, so we have a question from a student here at UVA. Ecclesia, please stand up. Could you ask your question, please?
All right, thank you. My name's Ecclesia, and I'm a first-year nursing student here. And my question is, I grew up in an immigrant family that wasn't well off enough to afford health care, but also didn't qualify for government subsidies. I know a lot of young people go without quality care due to outrageous costs. Isabel, should health care be a universal right?
Yeah, hugely, hugely important, and a question I get often on college campuses across the country. Healthcare is expensive, and just wait till you have a baby. It gets really, really expensive once you start having to pay for prenatal care and childbirth, which I'm hoping we can make a whole lot more affordable in the future, especially for our children. That said, there's an interesting dichotomy here about the production of the definition of human rights. And if you ask most people about the definition of human rights, there's kind of two schools of thoughts on this. One is a positive right, and one is a negative right. Typically in world history, the West, Western civilization, has subscribed to the negative right idea, meaning human rights are something that innately belong to you and they cannot be taken away by a government, by another person, because your rights come from God, not the system under which you live. Things like free speech, your right to freely believe in something for a religion, the things that we typically think about in like the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. A positive right has tended to be the United Nations worldview on rights throughout the last 50 years or so in our world, and that's something that you subscribe to humans, a right to an education, a right to a house, a right to healthcare that typically involves a service from another human. It's not a flashy answer to say, and I'm sure it'll be chopped up in a million ways to make me look like a horrible, heartless person, but ultimately, I don't believe that you can have an innate human right to something that requires the service of another person. It is a beautiful privilege to be having access to affordable healthcare, and it's something that we all should be fighting for across the board. It's why I'm hugely a proponent of healthcare transparency policies, where insurance companies no longer get to determine how expensive an Advil you take at the emergency room is, but you have the right to know that every time that you get a bill from the hospital, rather than all that negotiating happening in secret. It's a nuanced issue, but ultimately healthcare requiring the service from another person isn't a human right, but we should be fighting for affordable healthcare across the board.
Harry?
By the way, this is one of the strongest arguments you can make about on this topic. Like really, this is the strongest argument you could make, that it is a service that is required from another human being, and you cannot say that that is a right, because the doctor's time is not obligated to you. That's not a right. You don't have a right to have the nurse's time. You don't have the right to have the taxpayers' money be used on you. You don't have the right to have, let's just say, the equipment that's going to be used. And also, there's a money incentive. If healthcare is free, there's a lot of these people who make the argument, one other argument would be that if there's no money incentive, they don't get paid according to their work, then they might not work as hard. Then you might not find as many new drugs coming out that are solving new medicine coming out, that are solving new problems, because there's no money incentive, right? So that's one argument, and the strongest argument is what Isabel made right there, is that a service from another human being is not an obligatory right that you could have as a human being. So that's that. Let's see what Harry says. He's going to be making I know I haven't even watched this, but I think Harry's going to be making a point that is a general point, like everyone deserves to have healthcare. Everyone, that's what they do. They don't make a specific argument, because that's where they fail, and that's where they realize that they're wrong.
Well, Isabel just spent like 2 minutes of her answer talking about the definition of like human rights, positive rights, negative rights. I'll answer it very briefly. Everybody should have healthcare. I mean, we are the wealthiest country in the world. There should not be a universe of which somebody is going to the emergency room, whether they get diagnosed with something awful or they get into an accident of any kind, and their first thought is, can I afford this? Their first thought should be, I want to get better, or if you have a family member that got involved in one of these things, I want them to get better. And there's a lot of great ways to do this. I think there are some amazing proposals over time. I typically align with what Pete Buttigieg ran on in 2020, which was a Medicare for all who want it. So you maintain your private system. I respect and appreciate the relationship that people make with their doctors, and that's really important to build that trust and be able to go see them if you'd like. But if you want to be on a Medicare system, a public system, you can have that.
Look, the United States spends more on healthcare than virtually any other country on the planet. Clearly, more spending is not the answer to fixing the problem, the health crisis that our generation is facing across the board. Record rates of chronic disease, of obesity, of early cancer, mental health problems, substance abuse, you name it. We are dealing with a pharmaceutically driven issue across the board in our society today, probably because of how much our society is spending on subsidies to some of these companies and really allowing them to take the reins rather than the true pursuit of truth in science, which matters to me so much. This is what I studied in undergrad, and I got my graduate degree in this. If you want to look at the best possible example of how healthcare should not be run in the United States of America today, look no further than the Veterans Administration or anybody veterans in the crowd today. Anybody have veterans in their family? The VA has horrifying wait times, unbelievable limited access to doctors across the board. It's very reminiscent of a system that is kind of a Medicare for all, like that in Canada, where you have to wait 18 plus months to get an x-ray done on your hip to confirm that you really need a hip replacement. And that's exactly what's empowering governments around the world to run to programs like MAID to just suggest that you kill yourself instead, because it's cheaper, it's a lot easier to deal with you, and you're not taking up a bed in a government-run hospital. It is truly horrifying. But again, the pursuit should be affordable healthcare, and I think that's where opening up the market to allow for benevolent entrepreneurs, which do exist out there in the world, to offer these services to you at a lower cost in a more transparent way. So
First,
Okay, that's crazy. That is actually crazy. I mean, the question was crazy, saying that healthcare should be a right. I don't understand why anyone would say that. I don't understand why anyone would make a point that's like, I know it sounds like it sounds good. It's one of those things like buses should be free. Public transportation should be free. Everyone should be able to get on a train. No, it shouldn't be free. That's what a lot of times, like it's like one of those things like you could see it's a trap, but you fall for it because you think that's good, because you can't control your impulses. If you just look, like zoom out and you just think about it, it's like, no, you should never do that. Matter of fact, that's worse than it being expensive. What you should do. I'm not saying that it should be expensive. I would never say that. Like, I want people to get healthy and I want people to get to the doctors. I want it to be affordable. And I know the thing is that the politicians have said this word affordable so many times that anytime someone hears this word, it's like an instant trigger for them getting angry. Like, you already know, no one ever makes it affordable. Every politician comes out and says, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to make it affordable. And they end up not doing it. Well, you can see, although this administration under Trump, you can see some differences that he have launched, what's that called? TrumpMedicine.com. I don't know, you could go and see the prices of the drugs that were a lot higher before. Is TrumpRx.com. I think that's that. You can see the prices of drugs is a lot less on that website. And I think, if I'm not wrong, I don't think the government is paying for it. I think the government kind of talked the companies into just lowering down their prices. So that's good. That's something that's one step closer to affordability. I know that's not even close to, that's not a part of Medicare and this and that. But I'm just saying, any step is better than no step. So, yeah. By the way, if you like my breakdown, reaction, I don't know what to call this, whatever this is, then subscribe and share this video so that more people can watch this video and get some information. If you like the debate, if you like my breakdown or whatever this was, then subscribe and like the video. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, take care everyone, and bye-bye.